To know how to set up a dedicated Copilot capacity for Power BI or Fabric, I'm about to show you how. If you haven't seen my previous video on how to set up a pay-as-you-go or reservation-based capacity, check this little link out. It might be there, I don't know. And then come back and watch the rest of this video. So we're going to talk about how to set up the capacity, how to make it a dedicated Copilot capacity, which is probably the best thing to do, because then at least usage of Copilot doesn't interfere with your production system. All right, let's go. Okay, so it starts here in the Azure portal, okay, portal.azure.com. And once you're in here, then you can go to Microsoft Fabric. So in here, search for Fabric if it's not showing up as one of your recent ones. Okay, so there's Microsoft Fabric. And you can create a capacity. Okay, and like I said, I did another video on this. Check out the description links if you missed out on the little pop-up. Okay, so I've got a subscription, which I explained in the previous video. I'm going to pick the resource group that we use. I'm going to call it, it's going to be an F2 Copilot. Call it whatever you want. I do not want an F64. Okay, so I'm going to change the size. Must contain lower letters, of course. Okay, F2 Copilot. I don't want an F64, thank you very much. I just like an F2, which I'm going to turn off and on. I'm going to have it as a start-stop one. But in reality, I found that the starting and stopping doesn't really save you much money unless it's purely for testing. If you're using it for production, get the capacity here and then turn it into a reserved capacity. So watch the other video. Okay. So selected that. Next. Okay. Do I need any tags? Nope. Next, review and create. Okay, it's going to be against that Fabric resource group. It's going to be against that subscription, so that's where I'm going to get billed. It's going to be USD 321 bucks a month. If I go back to that region a second, again, just make sure that when you're picking your region, it's the right one, and I'm still not sure what the right one is, but the one where your Power BI Fabric tenant is, essentially. So just keep that consistent. I would imagine that's the best approach, but don't take my word for it. I'd love it if somebody commented and they knew exactly the right answer to this, about what region to pick. Okay, so review and create. And create. So this then creates a capacity that I'm going to be billed at the sort of high rate, the hourly rate, but I can turn this off and on. Okay, so it's deploying, it's in progress. Okay, in a second it should actually be created. So it's getting there. There we go. I can go to a resource. Here we are, and I can pause it whenever I want. Okay, so how do I come back to this to pause it? And you can also set up, I've got a video on this, little link will pop up and in the description. Link might be there. I'll pause it, or I will need to use it now to demo it. So you're getting charged for this, and it's essentially, if you left it running all the time, it would be $321 US a month, whatever that figure was. Okay, if we never turned it off. Okay, so if you ever needed to come back here, you could always come in here. You could always go to, resource group for Fabric, or you might find it under your recents. There it is. You can always go in the search for F2 Copilot. There we go. Or just you go to your resource group. So resource groups. Okay, and you'll find that I've got a Fabric one here with all my related items to do with Fabric. This was my little start-stop routine logic app to turn off my Copilot capacity. All right, so I'm paying for that. So remind me at the end of this video to turn it off. Okay, so where do we go next? Well, let's go create a workspace and make it a Fabric workspace. But that's not really what this is about, but I just want to show you. So if I say workspace, new workspace, and I create one called, Fabric Demo for YouTube. Okay. Oh, I've got one of those already. Fabric Demo YouTube 2. Interesting. Go to Advanced, and under here, normally say Pro license or something like that. It's going to default to a Fabric capacity, and I am going to choose. Okay. In theory, I should be able to choose my new capacity in here. Now, why can't I? Good question. It may not have just transitioned through the whole system yet. So I'm going to go back out of here. I'll go apply for now, just so I've created it. I can come back here and edit it. Okay, so I'm going to go Workspace settings, license info, license configuration. There we go. Okay, just a bit of timing. And I can select a license. Okay, but this isn't any, this is just an F2 capacity. There's nothing Copilot-y about it, other than the fact I called it Copilot. So that's just assigning a capacity or workspace. You don't have to worry about that. I was just showing you how you can assign a capacity to a F2 license. Right, all right, but before we start using Copilot, there's some admin settings. Okay, so you've got to go into the admin settings, into the admin portal, and obviously you need access to this. If you're not the admin, you're stuck. You've got to have a word with the admin. And I'm going to filter by keyword because these things are all scattered around. So, okay, so here we go. So users can use Copilot and other features. You can enable that. Okay. Then we've got users can access standalone Copilot enabled, and you can add specific security groups, and I'll talk about standalone Copilot in a second. We'll come back to that one. Capacities can be designated as Fabric Copilot capacities. I've turned that on. Okay, we'll come back to that in a second. And that's the main parts, really. I think that's the main bits. This one, Copilot, that's the key one to turn on. All right. And you can turn it on to the entire organization, or again, specific people or security groups. Okay. So then, if I go into Power BI Desktop, let's start there. Power BI Desktop, I've got a little report here, and I want to use Copilot. I click on it, and it should then prompt me to pick a workspace. There we go. Connect to a workspace, and it says select a workspace that meets Copilot requirements. Let's go have a quick look at that. I'm interested to see what it says. These requirements, okay. So we need to have enabled Copilot, great. You need to have an F2 capacity or above. That was a fairly recent change. It used to be F64. In my previous video, I think I mentioned that it was F64, but that was a while back. You need to be in a particular region, okay? Could be some interesting bits here. It's not supported on the trial version, so if you've got a trial capacity, you can't use Copilot. Okay, so that's the general requirements. I think as well that you need at least contributor access to a particular workspace. I think that's the case. But we'll come back to that. You guys can read that. Okay, so let's go back into desktop. Okay, I'm going to select a workspace, and I'm going to select that new one that I just set up, Fabric Demo YT2. Okay, cool, it's happy. Click OK, and now I can use Copilot in my desktop, and that capacity is the one where Copilot will use up the CUs, the compute unit seconds. Okay, so whenever I'm asking a question, okay, so let me say create a page summarizing daily usage for peak power. Let's see what it does. Okay, if this takes a while, I might actually, it's going pretty quick. All right, so it's given me daily usage for peak power. Okay, so I'm assuming it's put a filter on here. Nope. How has it done peak usage then? Date and usage. All right, so it's not done peak at all. It's just daily usage. Okay, but there we go. I'll come back and I'll show you the capacity app to show how much that actually used, okay, in terms of your daily usage allowance. All right, so that's in desktop. Okay, so let's go back to the service. Okay, and you can do the same thing in a Power BI report online as well. But I want to talk now about this one, the standalone capacity. But before I, standalone Copilot, sorry. But before I do, let's go to capacity settings, okay, and set up a dedicated Copilot capacity. So capacity settings, fabric capacity. Okay, here we go, there's my Copilot. Come down here, Copilot capacity. And this is saying basically turn on this setting to designate this as a Fabric Copilot capacity. And who do I want to be able to use this? Well, I would like just me, okay? And apply. Okay, what that now means is that whenever I'm using Copilot, regardless, I don't have to pick a workspace in my Power BI desktop. And when I click on the standalone Copilot, okay, to ask questions like find a report about or view the or prep a summary. So let's say give a quick overview of, and let's just pick a random one. Okay, let's see what our website is doing. I haven't looked at it for a little while. Okay. And again, I'll show you at the end what these activities actually cost. So this should now be this is basically didn't ask me to pick a workspace. If you're not part of a dedicated capacity, it will ask you what workspace would you like to choose. But here comes the little weird bit. It might not ask you what workspace you want to choose, because if there's a workspace that you have open down the side here, i.e. the last workspace you were in, and that's enabled for, it has a fabric capacity against it, it'll actually use that by default, the last one you were in. So yeah, it's a little bit strange that. So there we go, we've got some overviews of our report. Okay, but if I'm not part of that dedicated capacity, let me show you what happens. Okay, so I've come back in to my Copilot capacity under the admin settings, and I've taken myself out of that dedicated spot, and I've made sure that my workspace is down here, which isn't a Fabric workspace. So let's just check. Let's click on the Copilot this time. Okay, it's still recognizing that I have access. So I'm just going to refresh my browser and try it one more time. I'm going to go to the home. I'm hoping that down here I haven't got any other workspaces open, which I haven't. Okay, it shouldn't allow me to use any of these. Find reports about energy. So this shouldn't be working, but it might just be a delay in the system. So I'll come back to it in 10 minutes. Okay, 15 minutes has passed and it's still allowing me. I'm on a workspace that doesn't have any access at all, this one here. I click on Copilot, it should be prompting me for a workspace. So they're still working on a few things here, okay? Let's just check something else out. If I go back to desktop, okay, if I go into options and settings, so file, options and settings, if you haven't got the new user interface. So under Copilot preview, it says I'm using that workspace. I'm going to remove it. Okay. I'm just going to try and ask another question, see what Copilot says. So here, I'm going to say, okay, create a new report page. It's not even asked me what I want the page to be. Could you please specify the focus? Focus is monthly generation kilowatt hours. Okay, that's my solar panels from my house. So this is working even though I haven't told it what capacity to use, and I'm not currently assigned to a dedicated capacity. It's still remembering that I am. Okay, so that's where you go. You go to File, Options and Settings, Options, Copilot Preview to change where you want the workspace. I'll give it another quarter of an hour in the service, and then I'll see if it actually stops me from accessing this standalone Copilot. It shouldn't be allowing me to access this because I'm not assigned to any workspaces. I'm not assigned to any dedicated Copilot capacity. All right, I think we're finally there with this recognizing that I'm no longer part of a dedicated capacity. So I'm in a random workspace that hasn't got any sort of fabric capacity or anything like that. And if I click Copilot, it's then asking me to select a workspace. The thing I don't know, okay, if I do select a workspace, and let's say I go and select that Fabric Demo YT2, okay, so that's where it's going. I don't know how to unselect that. I don't think there's a way currently. Let me go into my admin portal. If you haven't got access to this, yeah, I don't actually know how you undo it or pick a different workspace. Might be under one of these settings somewhere, but I haven't been able to find it. I'm not even sure if it's there yet. Probably something they're working on. Okay, and then finally, if you go to apps and then get apps, okay, and you do template apps and you search for capacity, there's the Fabric Capacity Metrics and the Fabric Capacity Chargeback. Both can do very similar things in terms of telling you what's being used. I've already got those set up. So if I go back to my workspaces and I go to my capacity metrics and I refreshed it a few minutes ago, okay? So if I go into my app, I built my own version with the slightly different colors and things, just to make it a little bit clearer for me. And I've chosen F2 Copilot for my capacity name from the drop down here. When you install it, there is some setup. I can't quite remember what the step is, but it's pretty straightforward. Okay, so here's the work I've done. So 5,444 CUs. So with an F2 capacity, you get 7,200 CUs per hour. Okay, compute seconds. Really, there's 2 seconds per second. 2 seconds of compute per second. That's what an F2 is. F4, double that. F8, double that. Okay. So really, I've used up, 4,000 out of 7,600 seconds. So what's that? Just over like 60%-ish of my hourly capacity, just with what I showed you then in Copilot. Imagine opening that up to a lot of people. They can chew through the capacity quite quickly. So therefore, I'd recommend, just actually having a dedicated capacity when you're trying this stuff out and slowly add people and see what the usage is like. Because I can imagine you could chew through a lot with that. Okay. And interestingly, even this is a bit weird. Like, how has it used my workspace? Is that what it assigns it to? If you have a dedicated capacity, but it shouldn't be. It should be allocating it to this. So, bit strange. Not really sure what that one is. But is that enough information for you? These things are going to change. Check out the description, okay? Check out the description, because I'll put posts in there when things update, and I'll do another video at some point as well when they've got all this fixed up and working. Let me know what you think. Love to have your comments. Do you find this useful? All right. I'll catch you in the next video. And yes, I almost did forget to pause my capacity. So portal.azure.com into Copilot, pause, and now I can't use any Copilot activity. All right, let's go see what happens. If I go in and try Copilot, select a workspace, click OK, bit of an issue.